Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Welcome to class. Take your seats. The bell has rung. And now we're about to get things started. Spit out that gum, please, and take off your hoods. We're going to learn today about music starting in the early 1960s, wrapped up the 1950s last time, and now heading into the 1960s. And we're going to get into a little bit of the music that was going on here that was starting to become popular. Let's go. All right, so let's talk about surf music. Now, rock is changing a lot here in the early 60s. We start to get this really laid back style of rock and roll coming specifically from the West Coast. Okay. And if you think about it, it makes sense, right? West Coast, we got Southern California, we got kind of a laid back attitude. Weather's always nice, and you got beach parties and things like that. So this is, having an impact on the music. So we get a laid back, gentle vibe that the West Coast is known to have. Stems from West Coast jazz. Okay. So even though the music is more laid back, the level of musicianship is going to tend to be a little bit higher because a lot of these musicians have already been trained in jazz, which is kind of a high intellect style of music. All right, so let's go on. We have bands coming into the popular fray here, like the Ventures from Seattle. They were popular with songs like The Real McCoy and Walk Don't Run. Of course, we have the Beach Boys, and that's who we're going to be spending the majority of our time. Excuse me. We're going to be spending the majority of our time talking about them. They had that famous Four Freshmen vocal style harmonies. Now, if you don't know the Four Freshmen, that's okay. They are kind of more of like a lounge group. They do more jazzy stuff, but they're known for these really tight, close-knit vocal harmonies, and that is a staple of the Beach Boys from their early days, and then all the way through to their later albums, which we'll talk all about the Beach Boys, so you'll find out about that. But a lot about the Beach Boys change, but the one thing that stays the same are these really complex vocal harmonies that are reminiscent of the group, the Four Freshmen. Of course, you have New Jersey's own Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons with songs like Sherry. I was gonna do the falsetto. I'm not gonna try to get that high. I'm not gonna try. But also Walk Like a Man and Big Girls Don't Cry. Great group. If you've ever seen the Broadway musical Jersey Boys, anyone out there ever see that? Well, that's the story of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. Anyone ever see The Sopranos? Hopefully not. But if you have, Frankie Valli is in The Sopranos. All right, let's talk about the Beach Boys. Formed in 1961 by rock and roll genius Brian Wilson. We'll talk more about that. And his cousin Mike Love. They were the founders of the band. Band also includes Brian's younger brothers Dennis and Carl, and their friend Al Jardine. As I said before, they're known for their vocal harmonies, which were influenced by the Four Freshmen. And when they first come out in the early 60s, they have a very light, happy-go-lucky feel to their music. What are their songs about? Their songs are about surfing, partying on the beach, driving fast cars, songs about girls, dating, things like that. Just like fun stuff. It's fun music. Okay. As they get later on in their career, the songs take a more serious turn. But this is what it's all about in the beginning. Early hits include Surfer Girl, Surfin' USA, Surf City, Surfin' Safari. Are you noticing a pattern? Little Deuce Coupe, about drag racing, driving a fast car, right? So this is what it was all about. Partying, having a good time, hanging out on the beach, hanging out with your friends, you know, dating girls, fun stuff. And now we're going to get into my favorite album by the Beach Boys. I think far and away their masterpiece, the album known as Pet Sounds. Uh, but take a listen. I'm going to link below. Um, Mrs. DeJoseph's bringing me some tea because she hears I got a kind of a scratchy voice right now. I don't know. Excuse me. Um, where was I? Oh yeah, I'm gonna link below some of the early hits from the Beach Boys, so you can get a feel of, you know, the music that they were coming out with in the beginning of their career. It's really fun, and I think the music, you'll want to listen to the whole song. These are really good and fun songs. But now we're getting into more cerebral territory, more intellectual territory here with Pet Sounds. Still has some fun melodies, but is a little bit more artistic, I think we can say. There they are. Okay, so as the group became more successful, the demands of touring took their toll. In 1964, Brian Wilson suffered his first of one of his many major nervous breakdowns. And you know, and this is the tragic story of Brian Wilson. He um, was a musical genius, as I called him before, a rock and roll genius. But sometimes, you know, the price of being a genius can take its toll. Along with all the things that were going on at this time, they had a very hectic touring schedule, and they were under a lot of pressure to be successful. Look at that year, 1964. Does anyone know what other major rock and roll event happened in 1964? Anybody? Well, if you said the Beatles performing live on the Ed Sullivan Show, then you would be correct. Now, maybe I'm not sure how much of the Beatles you've heard, how much of the Beach Boys you've heard, but these are very different groups. So the Beatles are gaining a lot of success here in the mid 1960s, and the Beach Boys, who are, you know, who are more established in the States, are finding themselves having to really up their game musically in order to compete and stay relevant. And that's really where Pet Sounds comes in. It's the product of uh, the intellectual rigor and the artistic rigor that they had to go through to, you know, come up with this really amazing boundary pushing album. And that's really what it's known as today. It's known as one of the most influential rock and roll albums of all time that pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable to have in rock and roll. Okay. And that happens in 1966 is when Pet Sounds comes out. And it really does raise the standard of the quality of artist recordings. People are now more focused on the production of the album, not just the songwriting, but also the producing. Instrumentation, what kind of instruments are we going to have in our album? and you'll see Pet Sounds, they have some unique instruments that you don't always have. I'm going to link below a song called God Only Knows, which features the French horn, an instrument that you don't normally hear in rock and roll. God Only Knows, by the way, is said to be the favorite song of Paul McCartney, who, if you don't know, is one of the leaders of the Beatles. So he was listening to the Beach Boys and getting inspired by them. I think it's fair to say that the Beatles themselves were inspired by the Beach Boys, because you have in 1966, Pet Sounds comes out, and it's nothing like anyone had ever heard before. In 1967, the Beatles come out with a little album called Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which is another groundbreaking album and gets a lot of accolades for being so unique and groundbreaking. But, you know, personally speaking, I think the Beatles were influenced by Pet Sounds in order to create that album. All right, so in regards to Pet Sounds, we have songs here like Wouldn't It Be Nice, Sloop John B, God Only Knows, as I said. It also contained more personal and introspective songs, such as I Know There's an Answer and I Wasn't Made for These Times. So we're getting really deep as far as the subject matter of the songs go, the arranging of the songs, the instrumentation, the vocal harmonies, which were always complex, but now they're, when you view them in this kind of artistic way, they're even more stunning. Okay, so what I'm going to do below is I'm going to link two versions of the song Wouldn't It Be Nice. If you've heard one song from Pet Sounds, it was probably this one. I'm going to put two different versions for you. First, I'm going to put the regular cut from the album, the track that if you bought the album, you would play it and you would hear this version, okay? And then I'm going to show you the isolated vocal track, okay? So what they're able to do is, when they're recording an album, what they do is that they record the vocal tracks and the instrumental tracks separately. So you record the instrumental part first, and then you go into the singing booth and you listen on the headphones to what you played in the studio, and then you sing on top of that. So what they're able to do then is they put the two tracks together, but you could also listen to them separately. And on YouTube, they have the separated isolated vocal parts. I want you to really listen to that. Listen to the whole thing if you can. This is the days before auto-tune. So what you're hearing is the actual voices of the members of the Beach Boys. It's really impressive. It's really impressive. You can tell that these were not just, some schlubs in their garage playing, music for fun. These were serious artists. These were serious musicians. And even though a lot of their songs might have been happy-go-lucky and fun and about, having a dance party on the beach, these people knew what they were doing. They were masters at their craft. And that's clear when you listen to this isolated vocal part in the song Wouldn't It Be Nice? Okay, so listen to both versions, but pay special attention to that one. It also influenced John Lennon and Paul McCartney to write Here, There, and Everywhere. And as I said before, I think it's fair to say that Pet Sounds had a not insignificant influence on the creation of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles, which is known as, and maybe known as the greatest album. I'm not sure, but it gets a lot of high praise. Let's put it that way. All right, let's talk about the album Smile. Okay, so Wilson spent an unprecedented $16,000, which back then was today it's a lot of money, but back then it was even Trust me, if you came up to me and said, "Here's a check for 16,000," I would not say, "Go away, sir." I would say, "Thank you very much." But back then, it was even more money, and that's what Brian Wilson spent on the hit song "Good Vibrations," which I will also link below. It's a fantastic song and very, very unique in terms of song structure and song form. And talk about unique instrumentation. Um, this song features an instrument known as the theremin. Okay, you might, if you don't know what the theremin is, it is one of the earliest electronic instruments. It's the only instrument, to my knowledge, that you play without touching it. That's how you play it. You move your hands closer and farther away from the instrument, and that controls the pitch and the volume. So that you hear that in the chorus of Good Vibrations, and I mean, talk about pushing the boundaries, right? I mean, what an obscure instrument to bring in to the recording of a rock album or a rock song like Good Vibrations. So I'm gonna link that song below as well. He later teamed up with the producer Van Dyke Parks to produce the album Smile, that would just be as complex and demanding as Good Vibrations and Pet Sounds. But the project was doomed from the start. Okay, we had some early takes on songs like Surf's Up and Cabin Essence that were good songs. They showed a lot of promise. However, Brian Wilson's drug use and his, you know, penchant for his nervous breakdowns caused the project to be canceled. Okay, you know, this is, once again, the real tragedy of Brian Wilson is this kind of erratic behavior that he had, because he really was an amazing songwriter, producer, musician in general. A few of the songs ended up on the album Smiley Smile in 1967. However, this was a commercial letdown compared to Pet Sounds, and they never really got to that level of the quality of Pet Sounds and Good Vibrations after that. In 2004, a re-recorded version of Smile was released, and it was a critical success as well as a financial success. So, good on the Beach Boys. They finally got it right in 2004. That was the year I graduated high school. I'm old. Okay, folks. So that's going to do it for us today. When we come back for our next class, we are going to talk about the British invasion. And then perhaps I will give details about our next project. Project? Yes, project. But we're going to talk about the British invasion. We're going to talk about all of the great British rock bands that invaded the United States and the many great battles that were fought in that war. No, just kidding. This was not that type of invasion. This was just all of these British bands were coming over to the United States and having great success. Some bands that you might have heard of, including the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Who, the Who, and many, many more. All right. So if there's any questions, please feel free to reach out to me via email, or you could always join me during my office hours, which are every day, Monday through Friday, 1:30 p.m. to 2:15 p.m., where I will respond in real time to your emails and posts on Google Classroom. I'm also, you know, if there's a real issue, if there's something that is really, really giving you a hard time and you want to discuss, you feel like you want to discuss this face to face, let me know that too, because maybe there's some way we can hook that up through Google Hangouts or something like that. Okay, so just throwing that out there. If you feel like that's something that you want to do, then I'm down for that too. You can grab your cup of tea, I'll grab my cup of tea, and we'll chat away. Okay, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, have a great day. Get outside. I'm not sure if it's raining today, but if it's not, get outside and have some fun. And I will see you next time for the British invasion. Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, bum. Bum, bum, ba-da-da-da-da-da.